All right, man. Well, thanks for chatting. Just happy Thursday. How are things? How's everything going, man?
Things are great. Excited, a while back during COVID, man, I was wondering if I was going to be doing this, and then now we're kind of back to it. So, I always get excited about the media stuff because it just kind of, I might have took it for granted during the COVID time. So,
Right.
and I also never would have thought that there'd be people interested in hearing me talk. So, kind of cool.
Yeah, man. Definitely a big opportunity you got coming up. A lot of things going on. I mean, Khai Wu, the Shadow, the PFL fighter. All these things. Mark Zuckerberg's training partner. And I want to get this out of the way real quick, man, because personally, like, it annoys me a little bit when fighters get attached to these things that are kind of, I mean, random in a sense of fighting, right? Like Mark Zuckerberg,
Yeah.
obviously, Facebook guy, all these other things, but people address you as his training partner, and it becomes kind of your thing at the moment. And this annoys me personally when it happens to not just you but other people. So I'm curious, like how you've reacted to it at all. Does it bother you when people address you like as that guy right now, or just how do you kind of take it all in?
Um, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing
Yeah.
because it got a lot more eyes on me, and two, a lot of people are actually like, "Well, that's not Zuckerberg's training partner. That's the Shadow." Like
Yeah.
we know him as that. But to those people, I say thank you, and appreciate the like them being there from the beginning. And I always love building, so it's really cool. There are a lot back then when I was looking for fights, it was tough. It was tough for me to find fights because not just COVID, but also it's like risk versus reward. Who wants to fight me? I don't have a huge name. I had a 4 or 5 win streak of 6-2 at the time. But now I feel like John Wick. Like I have an open contract on my back, and everyone wants to fight me all of a sudden. I had so many people reach out to me. They're like, "Hey, tell PFL to sign me so I can fight you." And I'm like I don't know that's how it works. And
Right.
two, it's just kind of funny now. A lot of people that used to maybe turn my fight down are coming back around. So,
Mm.
it's kind of exciting. And there's always pros and cons to everything. But if you understand how to leverage it to your favor, then, I think you could use it to your advantage.
Yeah, I mean that's a very good point, man. You see some people who do get bothered kind of by those things. I mean, another example in PFL is Biagio right now. Everyone looks at him as Muhammad
Yeah.
Ali's grandson. Like it's funny, both you guys kind of got these things, but both using it to your advantages, like he said. So, like, I mean, how did you get in connected with him in the first place? I haven't actually heard the story. How did this come to be?
Yeah. So basically, what happened was I think he was interested in learning some martial arts, and then our company, Guerrilla Jiu Jitsu school, got brought up, and I think just out of pure personality,
Mm.
I don't think money the issue for guys like him, right? It's more about like, do I connect with these guys? And I think what happened was my terrible dad jokes might have sank in with him, and he found it relatable as him being a dad himself. So maybe he liked my jokes or whatever it was, and we kind of clicked and hit it off. So I thought the first session was going to be that was it, and I wasn't expecting that. But then looking at it now, it's like we kind of stuck through almost like a year and plus, going on 2 years now. So it's pretty cool. So that's kind of how the details of us meeting. He wanted to learn martial arts, and I was able to be a good partner. Like being a role player is something that's just different than like how good are you at fighting, but how
Mm-hmm.
good are you at being a partner or a teammate or a coach. And being, the fact that I was so engaged at Guerrilla Jiu Jitsu very early on, assisting with kids class at the age of 12 or 13, I think those skills at the time didn't seem like they were very important, but then they kind of helped out, and I'm in the position I'm in now. So
Yeah, man, it's definitely very flattering and a cool spot to be in to have someone like him kind of pick you out and then mesh with you, like you said there. So was it like
yeah.
weird at all when you're like, this is one of the richest guys on the planet, all these things?
Well, to be honest with you, it wasn't weird at first because I didn't know who I was meeting really, and I
Oh,
didn't really know like I don't really know. Like I'll be honest, before him, I didn't really pay attention to that kind of like mogul. Like
yeah.
I know Jeff Bezos, I know Warren Buffett. Like I,
Hmm.
I know these guys, but it's not like if I saw him in public, I'd be like, oh my gosh, you're that one guy.
Right.
Like I don't know, that just wasn't my thing. It's not like I keep up with celebrities' lifestyle. I was just always so busy. I'm very boring, kind of in a way where I don't keep up with that stuff. So it wasn't until that kind of happened. I did a little bit more homework, and I'm like, oh, I mean, obviously he's the Facebook guy, but I'm like, I didn't realize the magnitude of the situation until it finally happened. So I thought that was kind of cool, and the fact that I'm like, I was telling people, I'm like, how we always see celebrities on TV, and we're like, we don't like this guy or we like that guy. The fact is, none of us really ever meet people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The fact that actually got to meet him, I get to have the more legitimate opinion, and I'm like, man, this guy's so nice. Like it's different than some what you hear online and all that stuff. So I just thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, you got the ultimate case of like, don't judge a book by its cover, right? Like, because it's
Yeah,
so easy to do that, and everybody,
exactly.
it's just what we go to by default, I think. But yeah, man, you definitely don't know until you meet somebody. So definitely pretty cool, man. And but about you though, Khai, like I did mention the shadow. I always love nickname stories, man. How did this one come to be? It's a great one.
Yeah, so I've always been a comic book fan, and I was doing like the whole Spider-Man thing. When I was fighting, I was like, man, I gotta come up with the costume, colorway, and all this stuff. But it just never clicked. It just never sounded right, and nothing ever worked. And I was a huge fan of Batman, and he was trained by the League of Shadows,
Mm.
in the depiction in the Christopher Nolan one. So I was like, man, this is really cool, but Kai the Batman Wu just sounds horrible. Like it sounds pretty, And I was like, yeah, we're not going to do that. So one of my fights when I was an amateur, I think it might have been my second amateur. It's been so long now. It's kind of funny that I'm
Hmm.
telling the story again, but I can't remember the exact fight. It was either a Muay Thai one or an amateur MMA one. But anyways, after the fight, the guy came up to me. He was just a spectator, He was like, "Man, it's so cool to see your fighting style. It's like you're there, but you're not. You're almost like a shadow. You're doing everything he was doing, but he couldn't hit you with the same move. He threw a leg kick at you, he would miss. You throw a leg kick at him, and you'd land." He was like, it's very interesting to see that because you're basically just copying the guy. And I was like, I guess I kind of am, huh? And he was like, yeah, it's so cool, man. It's like, you're like a shadow. But anyways, great fight. Hope to see you fight more. And can I get a picture? We got a photo. And he was like, all right, see you later. I don't know who that was. He was just a random spectator of the event. And that night when I got home, it was exciting because obviously you were getting a win. And I was just like, man, that just stuck to me, that conversation. And I don't think I've ever gone in detail about that specific interaction. But basically that night I went home. And I was like, the shadow. I said it in Mandarin because I speak Mandarin and all that stuff. And I asked my mom how to write. I don't know how to write in Mandarin. That's
Hmm.
unfortunate. But I asked her to write it out in Chinese, and I looked at it. I'm like, that is really cool. And then I went to the next morning. I had a celebration breakfast, and then I went home, and I was like, I think that's it. The shadow just clicked. A good
Yeah.
meal. You know what I mean? So I like it too because I was never very confident. I was, kind of getting bullied growing up. So that's not me. And when like what's really funny is when I get in like road rage situations on the freeway, I'm like, oh, scared of confrontation. And then I kind of remind myself, and I'm like, oh shoot, if we got out and there's an altercation that happened, I would switch into, this my job, But it's
Yeah.
not like I've gone to playing parties where they're like, hey, can you like leg kick me? And I'm like, it's like this. That's not me. It's only my job. You know what I mean? It's like meeting a comedian and you expect him to be funny 24/7. It's
Right.
like, come
Tell
on,
me some
relax.
jokes.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the shadow also, the name was very. It's a good like metaphor, or if you will, like just a good
Yeah.
comparison of shadow is that's not me. That's the shadow of my former self, or whatever the case may be. However, it sounds good, So that's
Yeah.
what.
I mean, that's deep, man. That's awesome. I love it. That's very cool. And we owe some credit to that guy then. Whoever that is, shout out to them.
Yeah, that guy. He's the real shadow because I never saw him
Yeah,
again.
exactly. So it was passed off. That's awesome, man. So, I mean, how did you get into MMA in the first place, Kai? I'm sure obviously you started with some, different disciplines as most people do before they actually jump into the MMA career yourself. But, uh,
So
yeah, what was it?
my brother-in-law, Dave Camarillo, for the OGs out there, he used to be the AK head grappling coach. So I knew him. So my sister was dating him at the time, and I met him when I was 2. Basically, like that's how long I've known him. And I never got into jiu-jitsu until I was like 9. I was just dabbling in and out of it. And I kind of hung out with like the Cain Velasquez, Koscheck. I went to Josh Thompson when he fought Melendez back in Strikeforce. Those were like the good
Nice.
old days. I remember growing up kind of in that environment. And so that's kind of how I kind of got into jiu-jitsu, and that's who I train with. And the next thing you know, years later, I'm kind of like taking a fight myself just for fun and competing in jiu-jitsu tournaments. And then I didn't he didn't want me to get hit in the head until I was 18. He was more
Mm,
developed because he was more concerned with, he was very intelligent. He was already aware of the brain damage some of the fighters were taking at AK with the hard
right.
sparring days. It's like, listen, you don't need any of that. Just train jiu-jitsu and you'll be good. So that's kind of how it happened. That's kind of how I got into martial arts.
Okay, so would you say a little bit of an accident then? Just kind of like, I mean, in terms of the career, obviously, you said you kind of doing it just to do it.
Career,
Right?
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely an accident. Like I never planned it. I'm telling you right now, I never wanted to be a pro fighter or a pro athlete. Like I never grew up dreaming like one day I'm gonna, get paid for punching
Yeah.
someone or getting a fight. It was more like I remember I grew up watching like my mom. She was a very unorthodox mom. She does not care about my grades like a traditional Asian parent.
Hmm.
She's like, I don't care about your grades as long as you're a good kid. You don't hurt anyone. That's all that matters. You work at McDonald's for the rest of your life. I don't care. My dad's the complete opposite.
Yeah.
But it was very weird because my mom would let me watch these movies, and her mentality was, so you can watch anything you want on TV as long as you don't, like do bad stuff. So I remember
Mhm.
playing GTA when I was growing up, and watching Predator with Arnold. So I remember growing up, I was like military because Arnold was and Rambo was one of the guys
Yeah.
I watched growing up. And I was like, I'm either going to be in the army or a cop. Like I just, die hard. You know what I mean? Like
Right. Right.
lethal weapon, all that stuff. So I just thought I was either going to be one of those, but I'm here now as a pro. It's kind of
Yeah.
weird.
I mean, it never
Yeah.
works out as we plan, right? So,
Yeah.
but man, I mean, it's very interesting too looking at your career so far, Kai. Like most of it has happened in Taiwan, right? Over half
Yeah.
your fights, I believe, if I was to do specific number there. I'm curious, just like how was it fighting there, and like I'm curious, like what is the popularity level just of MMA in general? Like when you walk around, were you like pretty famous guy? Just what was your career like in those fights you had over there?
I wouldn't say it's super popular in Taiwan specifically because that's mainly where I fought out of.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really cool, man. I wasn't I was kind of a nobody, and I was just always visiting Taiwan. I lived there for like 3 years when I was fifth grade sorry, third grade to fifth grade, and then I go back every year, twice a year sometimes, and it's really cool. And then next thing you know, I'm fighting in an arena that my friends and when I was younger, people used to sneak out to go watch concerts and all that stuff. And I'm like fighting there now. And then I win, and then I get to go back because they keep inviting me, and I start building a fan base. After one of my fights, I went to the restroom just because I was like, fight's over, I'm happy.
Mm-hmm.
And the next thing you know, there's a line that starts building, and I'm like shocked. I'm like, wait, you want a photo? And this guy's like, I want a photo. And like, I'm like, no way. And then they're just, it was ecstatic. And there's a couple other guys that were fighting they fight in the UFC now, some Korean guys, but even they didn't get that love that I had, and I was just like, why is that? And I think it's because I was ABC, American Born Chinese, that's the what they call me, and I can
Mm-hmm.
speak a little bit English Mandarin. They love that, and I think just my demeanor, just kind of like I never really played up a character. I was just kind of myself, and I think they really ate that up, and it kind of worked out that way. So when I do go back to Taiwan now, I do get, recognized, which I don't really care about that lifestyle, like, being a celebrity or anything, but
Yeah.
it's cool when my parents are kind of proud, they're like, oh, my son's known for something kind of cool. So that's what makes me happy. And that's what I really care about more. I could care less about if someone meets me, I'm not like, all saying I'm not like wearing shades, sign your thing. I'm all
Right.
cool. I'm actually talking. I'm like, how'd you know? Like, how do you know that was me? I had a COVID mask on at the time. And how'd you recognize me? And he's like, well, you looked like what you look like on YouTube and Instagram. I'm like, oh, that's super cool. What's your name? How'd you get into martial arts? And I kind of started seeing a lot of these fans were watching YouTube videos of mine, and there's chatter, and then being friends with some celebrities, and they posted my fights, and just kind of like growing that sport, as a pioneer. So that's kind of how it all happened in Taiwan. And um, you know, I won a belt at 145, which isn't my usual weight
Yeah.
class at featherweight in America, though. That's what's funny. I never won a belt in Asia. I won a belt here. And I would say one of my fights here, I just thought I've gotten a couple bad end of the decisions because of fighting in the other guy's hometown. I
Mm.
should. That's something I learned early on. If you look at my amateur record, I was only 3-1. I didn't have a lot of amateur experience because my parents kind of were like, "Hey, you got to start making money. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So I kind of had the pressure. So had I learned at the amateur level a little bit more, gained some more experience, I would have learned a lot more. But those losses that you see on my record, those are all growing pains. You know, I kind of have to. I barely have 15 fights all together. Count all my fights, barely 15. I mean, I'm sure you've done tons of interviews. How many guys have 20 fights as an amateur and they go pro? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like, there's some guys that have twice as more experience as me as an amateur than you know. So a lot of growing pains and learning experiences.
Absolutely, man. You kind of need those, though, of course, along the way. Very helpful. And it's funny you mentioned like the interviews and stuff right there, because I didn't realize that I'm sorry to say this, Kai. I didn't realize we had a connection, but you fought on Bellator 206, which was actually the first event I ever covered as a media person. So throwback to
Oh,
that one. So we were both there. And
wow.
yeah, all right. What that was 2018, I want to say.
2018, yeah.
Yeah, so good times in San Jose, but
That was cool.
yeah, I wanted to ask you though because like just going off right there where you said never thought about, this obviously being a career for you. Like you fought in Bellator, the first fight you had was your second pro fight. So like, what was kind of your reaction to getting that opportunity that quickly in your career with people would say the consensus number two promotion at the time, still argue that all that kind of stuff, and then just the experience you had competing in them twice.
Well, I grew up, you know, like watching a lot of the fights on Spike and whatnot, and that was a very interesting experience because, like, I don't know, like it's surreal, you know, like for dinner I'd be eating and I watch Spike, and I'm like, you know, Chandler Alvarez fights and this and
Oh,
that, and I'm like, fast forward, you know, imagine your job, you know, like your second coverage ever of any live event is the biggest MMA promotion you could, you know, like you grew up watching. So for me, I think, and having not much fight experience, not knowing really what I was getting myself into, kind of getting thrown at the deep end, I think that fight after I lost, the fact that that guy went on to win several fights and was ranked at a certain point, I think that showed me that I'm like, hey, it's either sink or swim in fighting. You're
hmm,
either training for your next fight or you're training for your last fight. You know, there is no, I don't know, the lights got to me and I need an easier path. There is no tutorial to MMA, you know, unless you're a big name or like a college wrestler where you have a management team behind you. I had nothing. I had nothing. You know, people think I have a Mark connection because maybe a family member of mine works at Facebook and connect.
right.
Dude, there's nothing. It's pure coincidence, you know. And I think there's a. I have other opinions about that, but in terms of fighting, it was literally because I think Bellator, you know, at the time they needed a fight, and I filled that role. And I think that fight in Asia when I got my pro debut, I think that got some views and that got me into Bellator. But I think that loss was more of a great learning lesson, and you know the greater the task, you know, the greater the reward, and at that time the greater the lesson, the greater the knowledge, you know, and that kind of helped, you know, me go like I'm 1-1 as a pro now. I fought and won a really big promotion in my first fight as a pro in the States. And I took that loss pretty well. And I was like, mentally, I wasn't broken. You know, I kind of showed up back in the gym to try to train after all my injuries was gone. And I just think mentally, I was like, man, that's pretty good. I had an interview right after my fight. People were asking, like, what do you think of this, that? I thought I was going to be like depressed, but actually, I handled it pretty well, exceedingly well at that time. I was surprised, I shocked myself, you know.
Yeah.
So I think that allowed me to kind of pursue my career. That really made me go. It's funny. A loss actually motivated me to pursue the career as opposed to a win.
Right, right. I mean, I guess it kind of just depends on how it plays out for the most part, right? Or how you're going into it and kind of understanding your position in the sport. And I think it might actually help somebody like you in your case where
Right.
maybe you weren't as like, I'm going to be the world champion, like right before you even start, like people who were just so gung ho on the goal and the passion. And then maybe the setbacks stall them a little bit more. Whereas with you, it's like you're going with the flow to a good enough extent, right? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. For me, because it's not like I'm a touted prospect at the time. You know, it was just more like, oh, okay, that's cool. I'm a pro fighter now.
Yeah.
So I got thrown into the deep end, and two, it's not even like you said. It depends on kind of how it went. And I actually did exceedingly well in that fight. The only errors I made was experienced based errors, not really a technical base. You know, in terms of skill, I was actually, I would argue, I was winning the fight.
Mhm.
But it's just like, experience, knowing if just the little nuances in the cage and just not having enough cage time.
Yeah. Yeah, well, got plenty of that now, man. So everything's led to the PFL. Here we are, like, on to the
Yeah.
future. Like, man, we've gone kind of, on the path here talking just now. So, like, looking back on things and as it's progressed, like, how crazy is it for you to think, like, all right, we're here at another big stop, a big point in the career going forward with the PFL and all the things they're doing, like debuting on the championship, like, pretty solid spot to be without, like, I think it might be better, honestly, rather than jumping right into a tournament. But I don't know, just how you feel about this whole thing and the excitement levels, man.
Correct. Yeah, I think it's time, like all my years of experience, 11 pro fights now, who would have ever thought? I still remember the days of me watching YouTube fights and going, like, am I ever going to fight? Am I ever going to get one fight? And now I'm like 11 fights in and I'm like, wow, so I definitely think all the wins and losses led me here. They obviously, but I meant like mentally
Yeah.
preparing me for this
Hmm.
opportunity. Um, and PFL, just the fact that I used to watch it when it was World Series of Fighting, and
Hmm.
then now it's grown to be the second, arguably the second biggest promotion there is right now, and the amount of stuff that they're coming out with, and then the tournament format. Just I don't know. I mean, I think it's really cool. I had a couple other offers, but again, PFL. I kid you not, I was talking to my coach. And I'm like, man, I think PFL would be a really cool organization to fight for. Maybe like a year and a half ago, and I had no communications with PFL. It was just like a random shot in the dark. I think I even was like, "Hey, why don't you email whoever their website is and see if?" Because again, we had no connections.
Yeah.
And then I actually spoke with Lauren first, and that was my connection. And we kind of just gone back and forth, and he wanted to see some things out of me before we further negotiations or talks. And then yeah, one thing led to another, and then what's cool, what's kind of funny was it was announced and I didn't even know. I woke up there. It wasn't like it was a collaborative post. I
Yeah.
just woke up today and I saw that my phone was blowing up. They're like, "Congrats, this and that," and I'm like, "Congrats! Like, what happened? Like, did Mark do something?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I was like wondering, and it was PFL, and I was like, "Oh man, this is awesome!" So it kind of like a lot of relief off my shoulders. But I will say this: I don't think I'm going to be stress free until I get into that cage
Right.
first fight over with. I think right now it's like a basketball player, person. I watch basketball, so
Hmm.
that's why I say that. But it's like they get signed to into the NBA, but until that first game actually happens and they're done playing, there's a lot of stress and there's a lot of mental factors that I'm fighting every day, and I want that. I want to be sharp, and I want to show everyone the real version of me. I don't think I've ever had one fight yet, even my pro debut where I got a 60-second knockout. I don't think you could watch any of my fights and go, you fought at your true potential. If you ever see me train and, fight at the gym, you would go, wow, you're like 10 times better. Why can't you put it together in the fight? And the truth is, it's like, man, I just never had enough experience. I had to
Hmm.
deal with, I just really didn't. And I've always been a late bloomer. And the fact that PFL is getting me in my late blooming stage, I'm like, man, I can't wait to show everyone the actual skill set that I have.
Was there any kind of I don't know thought about building off, of course, maybe not continuing the career in Taiwan specifically, but in Asia, right? Because of the little following or, kind of status you had built over there just with most of your career? Or was it like take whatever comes in terms of certain maybe group of promotions you were thinking about? Just what was kind of, let's say this didn't happen. What would you be thinking about right now in terms of the path forward?
I think it would have been, the plan was always to fight for a promotion that was big enough that was interested in investing in a different demographic.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what was really interesting was during the negotiations behind closed doors, PFL expressed interest because they already do PFL Europe, and then when Francis got signed, they were doing Africa, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, they might be interested in Asia, so I just dropped some, hints and some discussions, and the fact that they're interested, I'm like, that's great. But there was no real plan. It was the problem with plans is they never go accordingly.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like you could have a plan and then it just doesn't go. And PFL wasn't a part of the plan, to be honest with you. Like it was just a thought. It wasn't a plan like solidified. So I think it was just keep fighting, find tough fights, fight regional shows, find opponents that I could, challenge myself with. But the issue with fighting super tough guys on regional shows is the pay isn't super great. So if you get seriously
Right.
injured, like it just doesn't make sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I think logistically, it really makes no sense for you to take a world champion, whatever, or a ex, big promotion fighter and fight them on a regional show where the pay is very little. And again, insurance, and then you still got to pay taxes. And then what happens if the fight falls through? Because there's just all these X factors. So I think fighting guys that are similar level, that where it's like, 50-50, you could build off that, whereas trying to take a name from someone. So for me, I think my coaches were kind of pushing me there. I'm not great at picking matches because if you look at my first half of my career, I was winning one, losing one, winning one, losing one. And I said yes to every single one of those fights. So I think coaches started taking over and like, listen, if you really want to build yourself up, you need to stop. Because in my head, I'm like, I need to fight the guys that, it doesn't matter if they have more experience than me. I want to prove to everyone that I can
Hmm.
do this. But he's like, it's not about proving; it's about being smart. You know what I mean? Like you fight smart. Why can't you, pick a smarter career path? So to answer your question, it was probably going to go more regional shows and hope to, something, picks up like a PFL.
Yeah.
But COVID kind of happened, slowed things down. Some of the losses, I had one loss during COVID, and it was just kind of rough because it was in Colorado, high elevation,
Hmm.
opponent's backyard. I took the fight again, not really thinking of the disadvantages I was going in there with. I just took it because I'm like, everyone's expecting me to fight. I'm a fighter. That's what I do. I should
Hmm.
fight. But had I taken into account how these factors would have played out, I think I would have made smarter choices. So unfortunately, again, that was another learning lesson that I get to take and bring
Yes.
into the PFL fight.
Yeah, you let the primal instincts take over there. just,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
fighting. Let's
Not
go.
always great.
Well, man, yeah, I mean, now you got Phil Caracappa in front of you, and I'm sure you've been doing your studying and all that good stuff. But I mean, like, what do you make of him as an opponent? And I mean, I guess to springboard off that, like, are you one of those guys who do you like to be involved with the, studying and preparation game plan wise for your opponent, or do you let the coaches mostly take care of it? Because I know some guys will find a balance, give it mostly to the coach, be really involved.
Yeah.
Like, how are you kind of approaching this one?
I think you look at the most recent fight and maybe the fight before that, the most two recent fights, and just see if there's any tendencies, patterns you could
Mm,
recognize, and I'll leave the rest of the coaches because you don't want to overanalyze.
right.
Maybe you look at the guy and you're like, he's not that good, but in reality, he got a lot better.
Yeah.
Like you could watch my last. I love when my opponents watch my fights and think they could beat me the way I lost previously because I'm like, hey, I fix my holes,
Mm,
any hole I have in my game, I try to really like grind after it and get after it. That's why I've never really had a loss where it was like this exact same way, if that makes sense. So, I think he has more fights than me, amateur and pro, more experience. He's tough, fought in big shows before, taller, probably looks stronger. He definitely looks, I can almost say he is stronger. But I think the thing is, it's not so much I'm underestimating myself or anything. It's I see like I'm not trying to lie to myself and go I'm stronger than him. I can beat him
mm-hmm.
by his strength. It's high fight IQ. Like I was talking about. I love superheroes. It's like Batman. He
Mm-hmm.
knows he can't beat Superman, so what does he do? He gets that rock. There's the kryptonite. So I think for me, it's like looking at his style and whatnot. It's like now I need to get better at where I think he's going to beat me and continue to get better at my strengths because obviously those are my strengths. And if shall he choose to fight me there, I think it'll be in my favor. So using high fight IQ, I think that's how I'll defeat someone like him. But I like it because he's really tough and he's fought on some big shows, and I think he's cool. Yeah, I like his mentality. I don't know too much about him other than just they gave me a name and I had my manager and coaches kind of like give me some info.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that he's like 9-3, and I'm like, wow, that's really good. Like that's a great record. It's tough. Like I don't understand why people would always go like, man, this guy sucks. It's like you don't want to fight someone that sucks. I don't
Yeah.
think he sucks. I think he's pretty good. So I'm very actually excited to finally challenge myself. I think he's the guy that's had the most fights ever that I fought. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
I've ever fought someone with more fights than him. So that's like it makes me nervous. It keeps me up at night, and I love that because you know, going back to my nerdy references, how and
I
I don't
love
know
it.
if you ever it, but The Dark Knight Rises when Batman, he kind of broke his back, he was in that hole, he was
Yeah.
trying to make that jump. The only time he made it is without the rope.
Right.
Like you need fear. You know what I mean? So I feel like this is that moment for me. Like I'm literally, having nightmares about losses, and I'm like, that's good. Like I feel like when I feel like this, I do the best. My last couple fights, emotionally, haven't always been there. 2 fights ago, I was like not even like getting nervous the moment before the fight. I'm like, this is not good. It's
Yeah.
either I put on the best performance of my life or I lose. And the loss happened. You know what I mean? So I think that coming into this feeling now, I'm feeling like I'm fighting in my first pro fight again, like nerves,
Mm.
but it's controlled in a way where it's like I can talk myself kind of like through it as opposed
Yeah.
to before. It's like what's going on, you know what I mean? So it's pretty exciting, and I like the fact that he took the matchup. I had a couple other options, but it didn't work out for some reason. Not saying people are scared of me because I really don't think I have that demeanor or presence, but just some things fell through and a couple injuries or whatnot. But the fact that he took it, I respect him for it. It always takes two to make a fight,
Yeah.
regardless if you like the guy or not. The fact that he signed on the dotted line so you could get paid, I appreciate that. So I'm excited for this.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too, man. I mean, it's kind of the next chapter, right? And I think you've got kind of all of the experiences you needed to be like really prepared for this moment. So it's going to be really exciting for sure. And I'm curious too, like not to look too far ahead, Kai, but are you going to try and like push for bantamweight tournament next year? Because at the moment we don't have that in the PFL. Or you
Yeah.
think you'll maybe give featherweight a go? Have you heard anything about bantamweight coming in? Like obviously not to look too far ahead again, but I'm sure these some
Yeah.
things that have crossed your mind.
No, they absolutely have to. You have to be prepared for both options, because if you're not, you're not prepared,
Yeah.
So I think yes, on a bantamweight, like I think it'll happen soon. I mean,
It's the
I don't
best
have a
division in the
date.
world. We got to do that.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Like it's like good and bad, like for me, because it's like the toughest division
Yeah.
ever. But it's also the fact that it is the toughest. That means you're going to be that much better. Like
Hmm.
you have to rise to the
Yeah.
level of competition. So with that being said, I heard Ray say something about they're in the talks. I just got signed, so I don't think I have the privilege or the name to be in those meetings behind closed doors. But I think I want to get there, and I think if there's been any indication, I don't remember the last time they had a 35 showcase bout. I
Yeah.
don't remember. I could be
Honestly, it
wrong.
might be the first one. I mean, off the top of my head, anyway.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So like I don't know for the men's 135 division.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're putting me on a showcase card and the fact that they're putting me on the playoff one, like it's a huge one, like the end of the year, big going out with a bang. I think it speaks volumes. I think it speaks that there's a good chance that they might be looking to, build, depending on how the fight goes. So hopefully I put on an exciting show. People love it. And I get that win. And then people are like, hey, we kind of want more. And maybe I do a couple more showcase bouts.
Hmm.
And then maybe after 2, 3, then they're like, all right, well, let's start bringing in the division. And who knows? I'm always excited about hearing MMA stuff. You're a journalist, yeah. I'm sure you hear about the buy, the Bellator and the PFL. So who knows if that really does happen? They can bring some, import the guys over. I don't know anything. I just only speculate,
That
like
would be
everyone.
perfect.
Yeah, it would be really cool. So definitely, I think there's some movement in the 35 division. It's just in terms of time wise, I don't know when.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, yeah, it's one of those things where matter of time, really. I mean, we look at they continue to expand with other divisions, so I think you're in a good spot, man. So
Yeah, thank you.
it's very exciting. But all right, guys, this has been great, man. But before I do let you go, like talking all about this MMA stuff and whatnot, and I love the comic references you've thrown in, great analogies there and whatnot. But I'm curious, like I didn't ask yet. Is it full time for you in MMA? Are you doing like anything on the side right now? Are we fully committed at the moment? Like, what's the status there?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would consider myself a full-time athlete. I do work with, I don't know. I don't know if you consider me training Mark like a job because you're still doing martial arts. You
Right.
know what I mean? I think when people ask me that, like, are you full-time martial artist? I say, yeah, because I teach and I train. And when I think of like a fighter that has another job, I'm thinking of a fighter that's like
Outside
very
MMA.
rough rider. Yeah,
Yeah.
outside, like where you can't actually work out. So I would say I'm full time, being like a full time martial artist. I call it
Yeah.
martial artist because I not only am I training for fights, but I'm also teaching and learning. I feel like when you say you're a full time fighter, you're just constantly looking for fights.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I'm not saying it in the street. I just mean like you're always fighting and fighting and fighting. You don't really teach class. You don't really do this and that. So I
Hmm.
do have a little bit of a distinction, but yeah, I think working with Mark and certain clients that we have with our gyms and whatnot, getting our teammates ready, I consider that a little bit of a side thing. But again, like I said, it's still being a martial artist and
Exactly.
learning. So, yeah, I think that's what I do. So yeah, full time.
All right, perfect, man. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Like, because usually it'd be the stuff outside, but if you're fully encompassed, then by all this stuff, that's 100% full time as far as I'm concerned. So,
Yeah, exactly.
awesome, man, awesome. Well, all right, Kai, I've taken up plenty of your time, man, but I appreciate it so much. This was awesome, and I'm very excited for the debut. Big congrats to you on the opportunity. Going to be awesome to be in DC for the fight, and 80% chance I'll be there too, so it'll be awesome to watch you fight live again, man. Second time, so for the big one here. But I appreciate it so much, man. I'll let you get on with the rest of the night. So thanks so much for the time.
Cool. Hey, thank you, Drake. I mean, it's kind of cool, full circle. Like my first big show, it was or second time I fought there. And now this is the third time with the charm, but you're gonna be there again.
Yeah,
It's small world, like who would have
seriously.
thought like we cross paths like this? So I really appreciate it. Thank you for your time, and hope to see you there
Yeah,
and
man,
chat with you.
for sure. We definitely will. All right, Kai.
All right,
Have a good one.
you too.